Hi, my friend. I'm Alicia Lynn Diaz, transformational healer and creator of the Enlightened Body System. Today, I have an interview for you with the legendary Dr. John Douillard. Dr. Douillard is the author of the controversial book Eat Wheat, and he is a world-renowned Ayurvedic practitioner. In this interview, he'll be talking about brain fog, where it comes from, and how to lose it. He's also going to give his refreshing perspective on the microbiome, and he'll break down how your skin is actually connected to your brain. All of the science that he'll be covering today is directly relevant to a training that I do called the 21-Day Gut Reset, the Enlightened Belly Program, so you can get a link to a free training about that in the description below. Without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. John Douillard.
Billions of years ago, the first primitive cells on the planet had a nucleus and a cell membrane and not a whole lot more than that. The nucleus was for reproduction. The cell membrane was the awareness membranes. It was the brains of the outfit. You could pull the nucleus out of any cell today, and the cell continues to live happily ever after. It doesn't have any problem. It can't reproduce, but it lives a good, long life. So the cell membrane of the cell was the brains, and the cell membrane gave it the awareness of the outside world, right? And in fact, billions of years ago, there's been a lot of changes on this planet, and those cell membranes had to basically take information from the outside and bring it into the inside so we could survive and navigate. And the first thing it had was circadian science or rhythms. It could adapt to light and dark cycles, to seasonal cycles. Fundamental for our survival, the very first primitive cells on the planet had a circadian clock inside of them. Those cells realized that the more awareness they had of the outside environment, the healthier they were, the longer they lived, the better things went. So they said, well, what if we joined forces, became a community of cells, and they started gathering around, and they created a big community of cells. Now they had way more surface area on the cell membrane side, way more awareness of the outside world, and the ones with the greater awareness won, and that happens to be us. We have the most awareness of most living, at least we think we do, of most living species. Well, those cell membranes evolved to become our skin. And the skin of our body is made from the same embryological structure as our brain and our central nervous system. So our brain and our central nervous system is the exact same tissue, derived from the same tissue as our skin. And the skin was the original awareness membrane, the original brains of the outfit. As we evolved, we said, well, the skin is sort of, I don't know if we should have all the brains right here because what if I get hit by a meteor or something and I could take out my brains and the skin, so maybe we should have this alternate brain, which is your brain and my brain and our central nervous system, derived from the exact same stuff. So now we have highways that directly deliver information from your intestinal gut to your brain and your brain back to your gut. It's not like a little highway. It's not like it only goes from your gut to your brain and a little bit back. They're bidirectional. They're constantly giving each other information both ways. It is the highway that makes us humans and gives us higher states of cognitive function. The health, integrity of that intestinal skin, and the health and the integrity of that highway, that road between the gut and the brain and the gut, has been shown in studies to support intuitive decision-making and gut feelings and higher cognitive states of consciousness. So we're talking about all of a sudden the gut and the brain connection when it's functioning in an ideal way. Rewind to the sattvic way of life that Ayurveda talked about, just so happened to be, they didn't know about bugs, or maybe they did, I don't know. But that sattvic way of life just happens to be exactly what the bugs thrive on this day and age. And if you create a healthy skin, a healthy microbiology, and a healthy lymphatic system, we don't know how long we can live. And when I talk about lymphatic drain, we're talking about brain drain, central nervous system drain, skin drain, all the drains, so the cells get rid of their waste. If you can get rid of your waste and get the good stuff in, this body is going to logically last a lot longer, right? Mm-hmm. And we haven't done that at all. We've been feeding this body with nothing but processed foods forever. Our digestion's broken down, and we're blaming it on foods and taking stuff out of our diet in a lot of ways, never really solving the real problem, and many times getting malnourished along the way. And the reality is that, you don't ever have to eat wheat and dairy again. That's not the issue. It's not the issue of my book. But if you can't eat wheat and dairy and you once could, there's a really strong possibility that your digestive system has lost the digestive strength that it once had. And there's a very, very direct link between your digestive strength and your ability to detoxify. And your ability to detoxify is really important. Again, getting the waste out, good, makes a difference. And if for some reason you're not digesting well and you're therefore not detoxifying well, how do we deal with, I mean, you can take the bad food out, the hard to digest stuff out of your diet. I don't eat wheat, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat corn, I don't eat soy, I don't eat nuts, I eat. You don't have to eat any of that stuff, it's fine. But what about the mercury that comes from the coal mine plumes that cover all of America on every organic vegetable you eat and you can't wash it off? You can eat nothing but organic food and there's no way you can avoid the 400 billion pounds of toxic chemicals America dumps onto this country every single year. How do you avoid that? 72 million of them are toxic cancer-causing chemicals. How do we avoid that? We have the ability digestively to break down mercury and arsenic that might come out of the soil in your rice a little bit. And of course, we want to limit the amount of that is absolutely the best we can. But we have the ability mercury is new. It didn't just come out of the ground. I mean, the coal mine plumes are another thing, but the rice that was pulling arsenic out of the soil was pulling out of the arsenic out of the soil billions of years ago. So it's not new. We had toxins back then, and we have a system to handle it. Yes, we might be a little on the overwhelmed side these days. And as a result of a broken digestive system and a highly toxic processed food diet, we don't digest the good stuff well, and we don't get rid of the bad stuff well. And those are issues that are repairable. And that's sort of, the main thrust of what I like to teach and help my patients with and write about in my newsletters is how people take responsibility for their own health and repair these very simple things. These are very simple concepts. And they're backed by pretty good science now. 10 years ago, I would say, yeah, the lymph is the first thing in Ayurveda that we treat, and it's really cool, and it has all these great things. And I did that. And I would teach medical doctors that years ago, and they would look at me and go, well, how do you know so much about the lymph? And we know nothing about the lymph. And, but now I can say it to you I can refer you to my website and go, read all these articles and look at all the science behind it. This is not some ancient system of medicine that is just sort of like, why should I believe some ancient people? Because their ancient people had stuff that's now being proved by science. We have over 700 articles that we have online, all cited with references proving that this ancient wisdom, actually, we might want to listen to that. Because here's what we did. In 1961, they took cholesterol out of our diet and they put it on the nutrient concern list. And all of a sudden, cholesterol was deemed as the most toxic food on the planet. Saturated fats were bad, caused heart disease. Well, the research that they did to prove that wasn't very great. They were desperate to find the reason for the growing numbers of heart disease in the country. And they found a study in the 20s where they gave rabbits a high-fat, high-cholesterol saturated fat diet. And they all got heart disease, and it was really bad for the rabbits. And they didn't realize, maybe at that point, that rabbits are vegetarians generally, and they don't eat meat or saturated fats. So it does sort of make sense if you gave them a diet that they never ate before in the history of their evolution, that they would get some problem would happen. So they died of heart disease. In the same exact study, they gave rats the same diet, a high cholesterol, high saturated fat diet, and they didn't have any problems. They didn't get heart disease. But they went with the rabbits, and they used that study to make the case for cholesterol being deemed as the #1 cause of heart disease. It was so widely accepted, and for some reason, and it's sort of a comedy of errors why it was so widely accepted. They definitely needed something to lay the blame on. That all of a sudden studies were done not on proving cholesterol was bad for heart disease. They just did studies that anything that raised cholesterol at all was bad for your heart. So they stopped proving cholesterol and they started just proving that anything that raised cholesterol was all of a sudden bad for your heart. School lunches for kids changed. Foods became no cholesterol, low cholesterol. Everything changed in our diet. And since almost 60 years now, we've had a very low saturated fat diet. And there's studies to show that if you don't have a good saturated fat diet, your good fat in your diet or a low-fat diet would actually cause gallbladder disease. That one of the major causes of gallbladder disease is a low-fat diet. We all think that if you want to fix your gallbladder, don't eat fat. Well, the gallbladder needs to be exercised. And if you don't exercise it, it just gets congested. And most people walk around with a congested gallbladder. Gallbladder does two things. Well, a lot of things. It's like a little Pac-Man that gobbles up yucky toxins. It buffers the acid from your stomach, and it neutralizes and emulsifies fats, bad fats, toxic fats, mercury, chemicals, preservatives, environmental pollutants. It breaks them up and makes them into little tiny pieces so they can be absorbed into your blood and not congest your lymphatic system if they go into your lymph, right? Well, the problem is that we have all these years of eating these processed foods, and how do you know it's processed? You look on the label, and it has cooked oil in it, like a loaf of bread that can say squishy for a month or two, is only squishy for a month or two because it has cooked oils in it that are rendered undigestible, and they go into your system too big to be broken down and is absorbed or stimulated in your blood. They go into your lymph, and they congest your lymph, and they create real problems. And that's what we've begun to do over the years, is we've created really severe lymphatic levels of congestion. Now they're seeing in the lymphatic vessels plaque building up on the lymphatic vessels as well. So the same thing we have in the arteries, we have in the drains. We have the same kinds of things. So we have this situation where plaque has built up. We have lymphatic congestive issues, and the bile is not efficient enough to break down those fats, or abundant enough to buffer the acids in your stomach. Okay, so let's say you eat some greasy fried food, you get a tummy ache or you burp, you don't like it. Well, that means you don't have enough bile to emulsify. Not that you should eat that food like that, but we should be able to. And if you can't eat some of these hard to digest foods, you don't have enough bile to buffer them or emulsify them or get rid of them, then the stomach says, you know what? I just ate all this wheat and dairy and steak and corn and all this hard to digest stuff. I need some bile to buffer it. And the liver goes, well, I don't know, I don't have much bile these days. Things are pretty sticky around here. So the gallbladder can't deliver. So the stomach says, well, I'll just hold on to all this yuck, acid, fat for as long as I can. So you get your act together and get some bile flowing down here, because if I dump all this acid into your intestinal tract with no bile, I'll burn a hole through the intestines and I'll kill her. I don't want to do that. So I'll hold on to this and suck it up and be the martyr for as long as I possibly can, causing heartburn, acid reflux, burping, gas, bloating, all kinds of problems. And then finally dumps it into the intestinal tract undigested. Those proteins that are undigested are too big. They're intestinal irritants. They rip your guts to shreds. They congest your lymph, and they cause all the problems. Now, is it really the gluten's fault or the dairy's fault? Or is it the fault of 60 years of diet that completely congested us? And here's my problem, is if we say, okay, let's not eat wheat and dairy. We've been eating wheat for 3.4 million years. If we take that out of the diet, are we doing the exact same thing we did when we took cholesterol out of the diet? Do we have any idea? Because what that did, that low cholesterol diet did, it created the epidemic of our time, which is prediabetes and diabetes. That's what's caused that. Because your number one cause of your blood sugar is liver congestion, not pancreatic issues. The drug for type 2 diabetes, adult onset diabetes, is metformin. Metformin doesn't do anything, zero, for your pancreas. It is a 100% drug for your liver. It stops your liver from producing sugar, from making glucose. So the liver is the first system of blood sugar stability, and that has been broken down. And now we have an epidemic of blood sugar issues that are linked to Alzheimer's and cognitive function and chronic disease. And that started from this crazy mistake. And just this year, in January of 2016, finally, the new FDA guidelines on nutrition that come out every 5 years have taken cholesterol off the nutrient concern list, and now cholesterol, eggs, saturated fats are not deemed to be bad for your health at all. Wow, that was a little minor mistake. What that did to our culture in terms of hormonal imbalances, for making hormones with those saturated fats, for mood stability, for feeding the nervous system, to help keep the bile and the gallbladder healthy so it can emulsify the fats and feed good fats into your lymph. Your lymph system is trying to get good fats to deliver energy. But if that gets congested, you get tired because your fats deliver energy. I'm sure you have some questions. I just went off on a ramble. I'm sorry.
This is revolutionary information, and your perspective is so refreshing. So, yes, thank you for taking it and running with it. And of course, I do have a million questions that could have been tangents on every single point you made.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But I think the thing that's most alive for me right now, and just kind of feeling into where the audience is with all of this, is you presented so much powerful perspective. And I think the biggest question is, well, what is the physical, mental, emotional approach to enhancing the function of the lymph system and improving digestion?
Yeah, great question. And I think, we start with saying, okay, here's some really simple things. So simple. Alicia, the more I study Ayurveda, the more amazed I am at how profound and how much they knew. It just blows my mind. And I don't even get it, really. I just don't even, I don't understand. But they knew that if you sit down and eat your food and you're angry, that was super bad for you. They knew that the energy and the attitude and the emotion that the person had who grew the food and picked the food and carried it to the market and cooked the food and handled your food had to be just right, had to be sattvic. And if it wasn't, the food was bad. And they had the sensitivity to feel that. I don't even get it. And so now we have science that shows that actually when you yell and scream, the microbes on that food are altered.
In the third and final part of this interview, Dr. Douillard will talk about stress and the emotional connection to digestion. He'll dive into the lymphatic system and give you strategies for dealing with stress. I hope you'll join me. And don't forget to register for your free gut reset training, link in the description below. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I will see you on the next video.